The Attitude Era wasn't just defined by megastars like Stone Cold, The Rock, or Triple H. It was also a stage for countless overlooked performers, the quiet heroes whose contributions were vital. They weren't main eventers, they weren't Hall of Famers, but every match, every segment they took part in added energy, entertainment, and emotion to the show. From mid-carders and high-flyers to the unsung names of the hardcore division, they all deserve recognition. And today, we're honoring every one of those forgotten warriors. Let's get started. Wrestling Sphere, go! Number 11. Al Snow. The Attitude Era was a time when the underestimated suddenly found a way to shine, and Al Snow is the perfect example. Early in his career, Snow was completely lost in WWE. Gimmicks like Avatar, Shinobi, or Leaf Cassidy all crashed and burned, leaving no memorable impact. He drifted through the roster as an anonymous jobber, to the point his future with the company seemed non-existent. And just when things looked hopeless, everything changed when WWE sent him to ECW. In ECW, he reinvented himself in the most unexpected way. A man with multiple personalities, unstable behavior, and a loyal companion that happened to be a mannequin head named Head. The character's backstory came from the idea of someone spending years backstage, ignored and treated like a shadow. That madness gave Snow his own unique charm, quirky, bizarre, yet impossible to overlook. The momentum he built in ECW was so strong that WWE had to bring him back. And when Snow walked onto Raw with Head, he immediately became one of the recognizable faces of the era. In the hardcore division, he was practically born for the chaos. His matches with Hardcore Holly and Big Boss Man weren't just action-packed, they embodied Snow's controlled insanity. He became one of the division's most important champions, constantly delivering strange but entertaining moments. Even outside the hardcore division, Snow proved his worth. He played a crucial role in storylines involving Mankind and The Rock, turned the European Championship into a playground where he tried out a new nationality every week, and became the perfect foil to highlight Steve Blackman, a man so serious that fans found him hard to connect with. Outside the ring, Snow left another huge mark as the head trainer of MTV's Tough Enough. His mix of humor and strict guidance made him a standout presence on the show, influencing an entire generation of young wrestlers. And of course, no, not the kind of head you might be thinking of. Number 10. Terri Runnels. During the Attitude Era, WWE didn't just rely on violence or fiery trash talk to hook young male viewers. Bold, daring divas were also a major part of the show's appeal. While names like Sable, Chyna, Lita, and Trish Stratus are always mentioned first, another woman played an equally important role, Terri Runnels. Terri was never a true wrestler. She entered WWE with on-camera experience and the versatility to work behind the scenes. At first, she was even hesitant about portraying a seductive character. But it didn't take long for her to prove she was willing to do whatever the show needed. That commitment made her one of the Attitude Era's essential figures. She started as a sharp, stylish manager, always appearing in glamorous outfits with a cigar in hand beside her real-life husband. This phase showed not just her looks but her ability to elevate anyone she accompanied. But the Attitude Era didn't stay subtle for long. As time went on, Terri found herself in bolder, more controversial storylines, ones that pushed boundaries even by the wild standards of the era. When she joined the Pretty Mean Sisters, Terri and the rest of PMS constantly appeared in scenes that went far beyond typical TV limits. One of the most infamous was a segment where she pretended to suffer a miscarriage, a storyline considered excessive even for the Attitude Era. Then came her manipulation of meat. The young wrestler turned into a toy for PMS. Controversial or not, Terri gave her all to every role, comedic, bizarre, or provocative. Her feud with the Cat was another unforgettable highlight. Anytime the two showed up, fans knew they were about to see a segment where the amount of fabric on stage was less than what a dermatologist uses. That was the Attitude Era, and Terri knew exactly how to command attention. She also played a key role in elevating the Radicals after they joined WWE. Her partnership with Saturn helped him stand out, especially during the bizarre storyline where Saturn developed feelings for Moppy, before Terri destroyed that strange romance in a way no one ever forgot. Terri Runnels was never the biggest star, but she was an irreplaceable piece of the Attitude Era, someone always willing to push boundaries to make the show more explosive. Number 9. Kaientai. The Attitude Era is often remembered for chaos, violence, shock value, and oversized characters, but it was never a welcoming place for lighter-weight wrestlers. While WCW ran a cruiserweight division so strong it practically led the industry, WWE at the time seemed unsure what to do with the high-flyers they had. And in that unfriendly environment, Kaientai stood out as a group that used creativity to survive, even becoming one of the era's funniest and most memorable acts. Men's Taio, Sho Funaki, and Dick Togo debuted right after WrestleMania 14 with one goal: punish Taka Michinoku, whom they believed had lost his identity after joining WWE and winning the light heavyweight championship. The Taka became Americanized angle sounded simple, but it kicked off a series of entertaining matches between Kaientai, Taka, and Bradshaw, who ended up dragged into the feud by accident. The trio's teamwork showcased a style completely different from the Giants dominating the roster. Fast, agile, with a mischievous edge in every move. When Taka eventually rejoined them, the story shifted toward Val Venis, leading to the shocking, yet iconic, choppy your PP moment. It perfectly summed up Kaientai's run, bizarre, darkly comedic segments that they somehow delivered so well fans could never forget them. Later, the group was trimmed down to just Taka and Funaki. Without major storylines, they became a low-card tag team used to add flavor when the show needed it. But instead of fading away, they turned small opportunities into memorable bits, from the evil Indeed phase with intentionally mismatched lip-sync promos, to short but entertaining matches filled with good energy. Taka even sparked a genuine reaction from the crowd when he nearly beat Triple H, the world champion at the time, in a surprise TV match. It was the perfect representation of Kaientai's spirit, fighting with everything they had despite knowing the odds were stacked against them. They appeared in countless backstage skits, becoming a reliable comedic highlight. And to be fair, while their segments were funny, some of WWE's portrayal of Kaientai definitely leaned into stereotypical Asian caricatures, something that doesn't age well today. But despite that, their legacy remains: perseverance, creativity, and the ability to shine even from the lowest spot on the card. Number 8. Val Venis. Some characters are born for the Attitude Era, a time when outrageous, uncensored, and over-the-top personas were practically mandatory. And Val Venis is at the top of that list. There's simply no other period in WWE history where a porn star gimmick could walk onto TV, grab a microphone, and make the entire arena laugh and shake their heads at the same time. From his very first promo videos, Val Venis was positioned as a character unlike anything the company had ever seen. Sean Morley appeared with seductive swagger, dialogue full of suggestive innuendo, and even cameos from adult film icon Jenna Jameson. His husky voice, flirtatious mannerisms, and that "you know exactly what I'm thinking" smile made his debut one of the strongest character introductions of the era. Each week on Raw, his entrance felt like its own performance. A towel around his waist, a smirk aimed at the crowd, and lines with double meanings that, in truth, only had one meaning. But he delivered them with charm, turning what could have been crude into something funny and perfectly tuned for the Attitude Era audience. But Val Venis wasn't just a sexual joke. He was a well-rounded performer, experienced, reliable in the ring, and always able to express exactly what his character needed. His matches with D'Lo Brown, Ken Shamrock, and others showed he could absolutely hold his own against stronger names in pure wrestling. His strong charisma paired with solid in-ring work made him a fixture in many hot storylines. However, the glory of the Attitude Era couldn't last forever. As WWE shifted into a more corporate, sponsor-driven environment under pressure from the Parents Television Council, Val Venis quickly became an easy target. A blatantly sexual character simply didn't fit the new direction. Bit by bit, the provocative edge of his gimmick was removed until he quietly disappeared from TV, like a flame that once burned brightly but was snuffed out too soon. A pretty, anticlimactic ending, in every sense of the word. Number 7. Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock's run in WWE wasn't long, but every moment he appeared on TV felt explosive, and definitely not the same kind of explosive Val Venis brought. Before stepping into WWE, Shamrock was already known as the world's most dangerous man, an MMA pioneer whose real fighting ability made anyone think twice. WWE understood that perfectly and used him the right way from the start, as the special referee for the legendary submission match between Steve Austin and Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. Just by standing there, Shamrock created the sense that even Austin and Hart wouldn't dare cross him. From there, he moved into several major feuds, clashing with Vader, British Bulldog, and Shawn Michaels. But all of that was just the build-up to the rivalry that defined his entire WWE tenure, his intense feud with The Rock and the Nation of Domination. Shamrock vs. The Rock blended brutal MMA-style aggression with The Rock's rising charisma, sly, hilarious, and sharp as ever. Together, they elevated the Intercontinental Championship to a level of prestige it hadn't seen in a long time. Shamrock later won King of the Ring and then battled Owen Hart in a series of matches heavily influenced by MMA, including the Lion's Den match, held inside an octagon-like cage that screamed, "No-nonsense combat." It was one of the rare times WWE incorporated MMA without making it feel forced. Shamrock executed everything so convincingly that fans genuinely believed he could snap anyone in the locker room in half. He was constantly featured on TV, whether brawling with Val Venis during the Sister Ryan storyline or facing The Undertaker during the ominous Ministry of Darkness era. Shamrock brought a unique element to WWE, raw intensity, authenticity, and a sense that if someone pushed him too far, he might actually fight for real. His WWE career lasted only 2.5 years. When he decided to return to MMA, his departure was abrupt, and WWE has largely ignored him ever since. A real shame, because during one of the most chaotic periods in company history, Shamrock added legitimacy, toughness, and athletic credibility that very few could match. And that's why fans still look back on him with respect today. Number 6. Steve Blackman. If Ken Shamrock was an MMA storm, Steve Blackman was a silent tornado, appearing only when necessary, and when he did, everything in front of him got wiped out. The Lethal Weapon was exactly the kind of man no one wanted to provoke. Cold, expressionless, and equipped with real combat skills. It's hard to believe Blackman once nearly retired due to severe malaria and spent years recovering. Yet he not only returned, he walked straight into WWE, the toughest environment possible at that time. In the Attitude Era, where loud personalities and wild antics ruled, a quiet character like Blackman should have blended into the background. Instead, his plain demeanor hid what made him special: incredibly realistic fighting ability. His matches were fast, sharp, and precise. No wasted motion, no unnecessary flash. He didn't need long promos or exaggerated aggression. The crack of a kendo stick said everything for him. His feud with Ken Shamrock was one of the rare Attitude Era rivalries where fans genuinely felt these two might be throwing real punches. Two hybrid MMA wrestlers tearing into each other created some of the most tense exchanges of that period. But ironically, what made Blackman even more memorable came from the complete opposite direction: his bizarrely perfect pairing with Al Snow in the Head Cheese tag team. Blackman was so dead serious that Snow's madness became even funnier beside him, forming one of the era's strangest yet most lovable duos. After Head Cheese, Blackman reinvented himself as a weapon master in the hardcore division, where he truly hit his stride. His hardcore matches were never repetitive, always filled with creative spots and that signature, emotionless fighter energy that made every hit look more real than it should. His peak moment may have been his hardcore championship match with Shane McMahon, where he sent the boss's son crashing nearly 50 feet off a structure to the floor below. A wild, dangerous scene that showed just how much trust WWE had in Blackman's skill and professionalism. Unfortunately, injuries forced him out of WWE just as the Attitude Era was ending. Even today, Blackman remains one of those cult favorites, respected, feared a little, and remembered as someone who didn't need theatrics to be legitimately intimidating. Number 5. D'Lo Brown. Do you know who you're looking at? That's right, the real deal, D'Lo Brown. And if you suddenly nodded a little harder than usual, congratulations. His legendary head shake has officially invaded your brain. In a faction filled with larger-than-life personalities like the Nation of Domination, D'Lo was probably the most underrated. And honestly, who could blame anyone? He was surrounded by guys who would go on to become world champions, Hall of Famers, or, let's be real, one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. But when you actually look at what D'Lo brought to the ring, he was every bit as skilled, fast, and committed as anyone around him. During his 4 reigns as European champion, he practically reinvented the title, making it fun, energetic, and surprisingly competitive. When he captured the Intercontinental Championship, fans grew even more convinced that D'Lo had the potential to climb higher. Not just a guy who could work, but someone who could change the energy of a match the moment the bell rang. DLO was one of the rare Attitude Era talents who consistently delivered strong matches whether he was up against Val Venis, Jeff Jarrett, or X-Pac. He had cruiserweight speed, sturdy mid-card power, and in-ring instincts sharp enough to elevate every tag or singles bout he stepped into. At one point, plenty of fans genuinely believed he was on track to break into the main event scene. Teaming with a young Mark Henry, DLO essentially helped shape Henry's early identity before Mark became one of WWE's most intimidating monsters. His partnership with The Godfather was pure entertainment, and his low-down era showed he was always willing to try new directions, even if they didn't all hit the mark. In the end, what keeps DLO alive in fans' memories isn't just the chest protector or the signature head wobble. It's the way he sold every stunner, every bump, every tiny moment like a complete performance. He might not be a Hall of Famer, but he's the kind of unsung hero the Attitude Era thrived on, a guy who made every match he touched feel better, sharper, and more fun to watch. Number 4. Too Cool. The Attitude Era was packed with top-tier tag teams, the Hardys flying like maniacs, the Dudleys putting people through tables for sport, Edge and Christian roasting everyone on the mic, and the New Age Outlaws owning every show open. And in the middle of all those legendary names was a group that seemed like a throwaway gimmick at first, yet somehow became one of the era's most beloved acts, Too Cool. Before they had arenas dancing with them, Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor were too much. A team fans didn't quite know whether to cheer or boo. Their whole shtick was being obnoxious on secondary shows, and they didn't seem to have any real direction or credibility in the tag title picture. But everything changed the moment Rikishi joined. With the arrival of this friendly giant, their entire presentation flipped 180 degrees. What used to be annoying suddenly became must-see entertainment. No flashy gear, no long promos, just pure charisma, crowd interaction, and their iconic post-match dance. It's hard to capture how explosive the crowd reaction was whenever their music hit. The synchronized moves, Rikishi shaking his hips, Brian bouncing like he had springs in his shoes, Scott Taylor with that impossible-to-replicate spiked hair, all of it created one of the most authentic Attitude Era vibes. Loud, silly on purpose, and ridiculously fun. That popularity even pushed them into the tag title scene, and they managed to win the belts. Not for long, but long enough to prove they belonged. But what they left behind was much bigger than a championship run. Too Cool became the perfect breather between the chaos, violence, and heavy drama of the era. They made people laugh, eased the tension, and most importantly, they delivered exactly what fans wanted without anyone wanting to skip their segment. Their peak didn't last long, just a little over a year before the group went separate ways. But that brief run was enough to cement them in Attitude Era history as a tag team that wasn't cool in the traditional sense, yet somehow felt absolutely awesome every time they hit the stage. Number 3. Shane McMahon. I get it, putting McMahon and unsung hero in the same sentence sounds as strange as pulling a fire alarm just to see if it lights up. It feels wrong. But give Shane McMahon a fair shot, because when you look back at the Attitude Era objectively, it's hard to deny the impact he had. Shane didn't step into the spotlight just as the boss's son. He quickly proved he was willing to throw himself into any role. Biased referee, loudmouth commentator, backstage executive, or a constant troublemaker meddling in everyone's business. No matter the role, Shane delivered moments that defined the Attitude Era. Chaotic, dramatic, and full of energy. Inside the ring, he was even bolder. As a former European champion, Shane went toe-to-toe with opponents of every style. Steve Austin, X-Pac, Test, Big Show, and even his intimidating father. He wasn't a technical wizard, but he made up for it with something fans respected, an absolutely insane level of fearlessness. Every fall Shane took looked like he was trying to prove his bones were made of rubber. His wild dives, reckless strikes, and over-the-top segments always grabbed attention. Even when he wasn't jumping off a stage or scrapping with Big Show, Shane still managed to steal the spotlight. A single line, a small gesture, even an exaggerated sprint backstage was enough to get the crowd roaring. One of Shane's biggest contributions was introducing the Mean Street Posse, 3 upper-class tough guys with sleeveless sweaters, khakis, and highlighted hair. The kind of fashion that only made sense in that era. People laughed at them, but there's no denying they were the perfect comedic puzzle piece during that chaotic time. Shane may have stuck around WWE far longer than necessary in later years, but during the Attitude Era, he was pure gold, a spark plug, a risk-taker, and someone who added a unique flavor to one of the most beloved periods in WWE history. Number 2. Crash Holly. The Hardcore Championship was already chaotic, but it didn't become a true phenomenon until Crash Holly got his hands on it. Crash, who looked like a live-action version of Elroy Jetson after a sleepless night, boldly declared he would defend the title 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A noble promise that immediately turned his life into WWE's version of a nature documentary chase scene. Crash put himself in a no-win situation, and it turned out to be comedic gold. He was ambushed at airports while dragging his luggage. He was attacked in hotel rooms before he even finished taking his shoes off. He was hunted down in the middle of Funtime USA, with kids playing in the background while he sprinted away clutching the belt like he'd stolen someone's popcorn. All those sudden brawls in every imaginable location didn't just make fans laugh, they helped create one of the most memorable stretches in hardcore division history. But Crash wasn't only the little guy running for his life with a weapon in his hands. When he got back into traditional matches, he showed he was a serious performer. Teaming with cousin Bob Holly, he formed a surprisingly effective tag team, even capturing the tag team championship and putting on solid mid-card matches. He also held the European and light heavyweight titles for brief periods, proving he could wrestle just as well as he could run. As the Attitude Era wound down, Crash's spotlight gradually faded. Even so, he stayed close with Bob and Molly Holly, carried out every role he was given, and never missed a chance to show his worth. Today, whenever people remember the 24/7 rule or those hilarious chase scenes that had fans doubled over in laughter, they still think of Crash Holly, the man who claimed he was 6 feet 6 inches, weighed over 400 pounds, and had a heart even bigger than the joke itself. Number 1. Perry Saturn. The Attitude Era had no shortage of cool or unique characters, but Perry Saturn was a different kind of unsung hero. Serious, skilled, and consistently reliable. Saturn arrived in the WWF as part of the Radicals, bringing with him the elite in-ring ability he had honed in ECW. He didn't have The Rock's movie star look or Stone Cold's explosive charisma, but Saturn had something just as valuable: exceptional emotion, intensity, and technique that made every match he worked genuinely engaging. Saturn stood out thanks to his versatility, agility, and pinpoint execution on everything from powerbombs to sharp kicks. His matches with The Rock, Ken Shamrock, and Chris Jericho were praised not only because of his individual talent, but because Saturn had a rare gift. He could elevate anyone he stepped in the ring with and turn every match into a compelling story. He also held the European Championship, delivering memorable title defenses, but more importantly, he helped maintain the quality of the mid-card week after week without needing shock factor segments to get attention. He even embraced some bold and unconventional storylines, most notably the feud involving Moppy during his time with the Radicals. Saturn managed to balance entertainment and in-ring credibility, shifting smoothly from intense matches to light-hearted backstage moments. That balance made him the epitome of a quiet workhorse, someone who showed up, delivered, and never needed to brag about it. Though he never reached main event status, Saturn became a prime example of the wrestlers who quietly held the Attitude Era together, keeping the shows strong and helping bigger stars shine through his skill and consistency. For fans who appreciate pure wrestling, Perry Saturn remains one of the most underrated and outstanding mid-card talents of that entire era. These were the unsung heroes who helped shape the legendary Attitude Era. If you enjoy backstage stories and spotlighting the WWE names who don't always get the recognition they deserve, make sure to like and subscribe to Wrestling Sphere so you don't miss the next video.